And welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Owl. We hope you're enjoying the 50th anniversary and that you're ready for tomorrow night, which is our first 50th anniversary screening. It's RoboCop at Grandview Theater, back where we started in 2010. We'll have limited edition prints from Dave Wagstaff. We've got the Matt Harris poster art for RoboCop. Speaking of which, we have another guest. We had Eric Hartzell on last week from the original show. Now we have poster artist Matt Harris, who many of you know as the Phantom, who releases great art but never shows his face or anything at any of the shows. Well, he's here for a candid conversation for the next hour. Please welcome Matt Harris.
Yay!
Hey, well, I'm very happy to be here.
Yay!
They let me out today. So they said if you're going to go out and be around people, Fritz is the one to do it with. So
That's right.
Here I am.
It's very true. It's very true. And we have the man, of course, Fritz The Nite Owl.
And, of course, Matt has done absolutely incredible work on the posters for the different movies we have on Nite Owl Theatre. And how can they see these posters online, or can they?
For the 50th anniversary, the way we're doing it is the posters will be available when the show tickets go on sale for that specific movie. So right now you can get, you would have ordered RoboCop already, because for the first week the tickets went on sale. 3 weeks before every show, not to sound confusing, there are one or two Dave Wagstaff prints and the Matt Harris art for sale. They're for sale for 1 week only. And then we cut it off and we put up the next shows. The reason being we need 2 weeks to order everything. Right. So then they come to the show and they pick up their print with the purchase of a ticket, and that's how we're doing it. So you can see Matt's art, but for the 50th, we're kind of reintroducing it. So for each episode, we'll have his episode.
No, but is there a place that they can see Matt's art just...
Oh, does Matt Harris have a website?
Yeah, where they can see all of his art.
I wasn't expecting questions about...
my art, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't have a professional website or anything like that currently. You can find me on Instagram, I guess. Monster Artist is the username. A lot of my work is there. Everything I've done for Nite Owl is on display there, and some other stuff.
Well, there you go. So Monster Artist on Instagram, you see everything.
Right.
I am struggling with the Zontar dust on the planet here, and we'll be coughing probably throughout, so that's fun. But Vidas Barzdukas is also with us, co-host. You've heard every episode. Hello, Vidas.
Hello.
And I'm Mike McGraner, MikeMcGranermusic.com. Here's where you can find what I do with everything that's not Nite Owl. So we're going to launch into this. We're going to talk to Matt about art in general, and what got him started as an artist, and about his favorite movies, and working on Nite Owl, and being able to jump back into the 80s and 90s with us to do these posters for the modern day Nite Owl movies that we've been doing. And then we're going to talk about a creature that he and Fritz love about halfway through the episode. So, but right now, Matt, what attracted you to art in the beginning?
I have always loved drawing. Is the one hobby interest I've had my whole life that wasn't monsters. They both go back as far as memory for me, probably around the age of 3, 4, somewhere in there. I was already drawing dinosaurs and that sort of thing. And I was very fortunate that my two passions could overlap in a way like that. And I would love drawing any monster that I saw in the movie at any point. Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, Godzilla, Gamera, anybody, Kong. So it's just been with me the whole time.
And then you went to school for art?
Yes, I studied at CCAD in the late 90s. God. And
oh, dude, I was in college in the early 90s, so yeah.
Yeah, that really helped me refine my style, and I understood things that I had wanted to do but hadn't been able to do previously because I just hadn't clicked everything into place yet. So,
okay.
I feel like everything led to me being here right now.
What were some of the new media that you had never used before that you found at CCAD?
Well, that was my introduction to Photoshop, obviously. And I had historically used just pencil or watercolor. So it was an introduction to oils and gouache and all kinds of different media for me. Charcoal I hadn't done much in. So
Pastel?
Pastel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. To this day, my favorites are still probably pencil or watercolor or digital. Just I love how forgiving digital can be, but it also doesn't allow for the happy accidents.
Sure.
Well, I'm curious because we've talked to Fritz in a previous episode about his art and his interest in art. Now, he was a big fan of Frank Frazetta. Did you know who Frank was at a young age, or did you see that style and everything?
Yeah, well, I knew the name and I knew the imagery, but I didn't know much about the man, about the artist.
Nice.
And it's hard for me to think of his work without thinking of Fritz now. So
Sure.
Oh, well, you know, one of the reasons he was one of my favorites is I always liked drawing like you did at an early age, but I came across the comic book in, I would say, the maybe mid-40s. It was called Louis Lazybones, and it was just a feature, and somebody else's was the main character. Anyway, he was able to, in those days in comic books, very few of them signed their own name to the comic book art, but Frazetta signed this strip, and he signed it Fritz, and I must have been it was before 7th grade, but I just thought it was so terrific that there was a professional artist doing comic books that was named Fritz, and so that was where I started to look up this guy and buy things that, even if I didn't like the story or the characters, if he drew it or inked it or penciled it, I bought it.
Absolutely. I understand that.
But he's influenced a lot of the fantasy artists of today.
Yes,
Absolutely, yeah.
yes, he really has.
Yeah. So were you ever into comic books or anything? Were you a comic book reader?
I read a lot in the 80s, in the early 90s, the whole Batman craze of 89.
Sure.
Got me
Who were some of your favorite Batman artists?
Oh, it's hard for me to pick one.
No, some of, so you can pick a couple.
Well, you're putting me on the spot because I'm horrible with names.
Oh, okay.
But the look of Batman from probably the mid to late 70s into the early 80s.
Could that have been Neil Adams?
Neil Adams, maybe, yeah.
Neil Adams, yeah.
Neil Adams.
Oh yeah, Neil Adams. I'm sitting there clueless. Everybody in the room
Yeah,
Neil Adams. So like, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I'd forgotten his name, but the work of Neil Adams' Batman, the look was just, when I hear the name, that's still the one that comes to mind.
I think that's the same for a lot of people.
He did a lot of different superheroes, and all of them were just spectacular. I know that I can remember he did Green Lantern, and I forget some of the other ones he did, but when Neil Adams drew it, I bought it.
Yeah, he came in for a brief spot for the X-Men. And it's like, those issues are okay. And then Neil Adams, the art, and he was like Steranko in my eyes, where his perspective on the arts, the angles he chose, and those were always great issues. And then it went back to when he left.
Neil Adams was more of a DC artist than Marvel.
Yeah,
I mean, he did more DC characters than Marvel. But again, he was one of the people that, if he drew it, I bought it.
Oh,
yeah.
But there were others that were in the same boat. Who was the guy that did the black and white Conans when he first started? Anyway, he was a guy that I always bought, and
Sir Arthur Doyle.
No, it's not Sal. Oh,
Well, whatever his name was, it was a thing that
Buscema,
he was one of
Buscema,
my
maybe?
favorites.
Ramita, John Ramita, or Sal Buscema? I'm not sure. Are those names?
Neither one of those.
No.
I forget who it was, but Sala. He was the first Conan artist in comic books,
Okay.
and he did it for about a year or two. And again, like from the 40s, Mac Raboy Jr., a lot of his covers were almost frameable. I shouldn't say almost.
They were.
They'd have been frameable art. They were so good.
Sure.
Now, Matt, did you grow up in Columbus?
For most of my life, yeah. I'm originally from North Carolina and spent a year in Illinois before.
Okay, what part of North
I'm
Carolina?
here.
What city?
I was born in Laurinburg, which I'll spare you the nickname that I've heard for it over the years. But after 6 months, we moved to Rocky Mount, and that's where I have memories
Nice.
from my time.
So, were you
there.
near Wilmington? Is that near Wilmington at all, North Carolina? Or is it...
I haven't been back there in so long, I couldn't
Okay.
really say.
Gotcha.
What grade were you in when you moved to Columbus?
I was just starting kindergarten,
Oh my goodness!
so
Oh,
So
so
you
you'd been watching Nite Owl as a kid? See.
we moved to Ohio in 1980, and I don't know how long it took me to discover Nite Owl after that, but I know with my love of monsters that my mom, who encouraged everything for me, she was the one that told me there are movies that come on late Friday night that you might like, and she would let me take a nap after dinner and then get me up in time to watch the movies.
Oh, that's
As
awesome.
a kid.
Absolutely!
Wow.
My goodness! Blessings to your mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a story to tell about my love of Fritz and everything, and I don't pass up a chance to tell this whenever possible. Again, we moved here in 1980, and I was shy and kind of quiet, but I already had the love of monsters and dinosaurs, and as I said, she let me stay up to watch the show, and every Saturday I would draw all of the monsters that I saw on Friday night. I would draw Godzilla. I would draw the werewolf from Curse of the Werewolf, or any of the Hammer characters, Gamera, King Kong from King Kong Escapes. Just anything I saw, I would draw. And I did that so regularly that it really helped encourage my passion for both monsters and drawing. And
Oh, wow. So Nite Owl got you into...
100%.
Wow.
100%. I had seen the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon and some of the Godzilla movies in pieces prior to that. But I tell people, and it's true, that outside of my parents, Fritz probably played the biggest role in influencing not only my interest, but my career.
Oh, my gosh.
Because-
That's
wow.
awesome.
Honored because it turned out so. The artwork you produced for Nite Owl Theatre and other things I've seen of yours, just absolutely spectacular. As a wannabe artist, I am green with envy.
Well, I am incredibly grateful to you for the opportunity, not just to do everything that I've done in the last few years, but also for what you meant to me
Well,
growing up.
That's great.
And it,
You know, that really surprises me because I never, like with the late Mark Miller, had kind of the same interest, and it affected him kind of the same way. And when we were Flippo and I used to talk about this, when we were doing it, we never thought that we had that much of an influence on people. We knew that they enjoyed the show and that it was nice pastime and it was a good 2 hours, 3 hours spent, but we never thought that it really meant that much to so many people. And I'm just honored that it did and very, very gratified.
Yeah.
Well, and since you mentioned Mark Miller, for those listening, Mark was one of our writers on Nite Owl who sadly passed away But he had wrote our Back to the Future, Gremlins, and Goonies episodes. And so you'll see those this year. But Mark was an amazing human being who loved movies as much as anyone, and had a movie theater in his basement,
Right.
where we would have our. And when I say movie theater, I mean like stadium seating, and we would have our meetings there to plan the episodes.
And we would watch the films and plan everything out.
He taught film
At Hilliard?
and television. He taught
Gahanna
film
Lincoln.
and television and English at
Gahanna Lincoln.
Gahanna Lincoln, yeah, for many years.
Yeah.
And when they would have the student film festivals where he would assign the students, they had to make a film for the class. When it came time to give a grade, occasionally he would ask me to come over and watch the films with him, and the two of us would decide what the student's grade was.
Oh,
I
that's
remember
great.
when you and I went in and judged, like gave him tips on. We spoke on how the process of production and
Yeah.
TV production and things.
And we would go to class with him the day that he would show the films to the class, and then we would, he and I and you, and we would discuss the pros and cons of the student films, which were all, for the most part, considering the age and the inexperience of almost all of the people that took the class, they really learned a lot and turned out some good films as a result of his teaching.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
Again, like Matt, the show was very, very influential and meant a lot to him. So I'm glad that it helped you achieve the fantastic talent, explore the fantastic talent that you have.
So Matt, how did you get involved with Nite Owl?
Well, I, for many years, did the decorations, or some of the decorations, for the horror marathon, Shock Around the Clock, in Columbus. And I met Mike through Joe Neff, who was kind enough to introduce us. I knew Fritz was coming back at that time. That was...
I think we had shown the teaser at the marathon that year.
Yeah.
And I kept bugging Joe. I was like, who did the artwork? I mean, it was just, I was obsessed with how lifelike the artwork of those were. And Matt would do, these weren't posters he was doing. He was doing fully immersive. When you would walk into the marathon, he would have like sprawled on the wall, like if it was a creature that was like part of a tree or something, the tree would go all the way down the movie theater wall. I mean, it was insane.
Oh wow.
And I was just like, who is that? And, you know, and he introduced us, and I had no idea you grew up watching Nite Owl, but I'm sure we talked about it.
Yeah,
But
we had. And speaking of the influence of the show, every, I think it was Tuesday, maybe Monday or Tuesday, whenever we'd get the new issue of TV Guide, the very first thing it would be flipped Friday night to see what was going to be on Double Chiller.
Wow.
Did you ever save any of those TV guides?
No.
Damn. We have a guy trying to put together an episode guide for us.
Really?
He went to the archives and like looked up old dispatch articles, and
Oh, wow.
he's put it together through 85 so far.
There was an episode of Seinfeld where George's father had saved every issue of TV Guide, and somehow or another Elaine got a hold of one and lost it or something, but I never thought that there were people who collected TV guides.
Yeah.
So you met up with Mike, and then he asked you if you'd be interested in doing a poster, or do you guys remember?
What did you want poster for every single movie we ever do?
The first thing that I did really for Fritz was a portrait of him in Prismacolor pencil on black foam core.
That was the one we had with us at the convention in Columbus, right? Horror Hound, or was it Columbus? Or I remember you giving it to us, and he had the gold necklace on.
It
I was
was
like,
Horror Hound in Columbus, I believe.
Okay.
It was like our Velvet Fritz.
Okay.
And then when I saw the announcement that Mike and Fritz were moving away from public domain films, he teased that Gremlins was going to be one of them. And I said I would love to do anything Gremlins related for the show. And he said, well, it's funny that you say that because, and then we got to talking about posters and.
Because I know nothing about the time it takes to make art.
Sure.
So Jaws was delivered a month late, but it came in the same time as
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
But
That's right, because Blade Runner was your first one, right? Or in the week.
But you did 2 Jaws posters, because I have 2, because it's the one where the shark's coming at you.
So the reason is that when we did Jaws at the Ohio Theater, I was like, oh man, this is the chance to, like, if you want to
Do something
do
else.
one that's like a bigger scale, you know, because people were complaining that they love the art, but I think this is probably my fault, is I told you to be like abstract with Fritz, where it's not like Fritz, but more like, oh, it's wearing the origami is from Blade Runner is wearing the glasses.
Yeah, yes, right.
And it was a great idea, but then our fans were just like, and I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of fans, but I'm just, where's Fritz? Why isn't
Yeah,
Fritz in this?
sure.
And so the Jaws redo, I think, was, we were like, how do we put Fritz in this?
I only wish I looked as good as he drew me.
Well, you're getting eaten by Jaws.
Yeah,
so
it's actually
you
my,
look pretty good for that.
Well,
that one is in my bedroom.
I'm low-cal.
Yeah, so that one is actually, it's weird. That's the one. So it's my kid's art and then Matt Harris art of Fritz getting eaten by a shark. You know, so when I wake up, it's right there.
That's
So
one of the greatest compliments I've ever received.
yeah,
And I should mention, one of the things that always astounded me and I loved about Matt's art was Mike and I never gave him any kind of input as to what
That's
the
what was
art should
exciting.
be.
Yeah.
And it was all out of his head that what he would create was completely, he had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted.
100%.
And every one of them was an A+. We were looking forward to seeing the art as much as the people were looking forward
Or to see
seeing
what we
the movie.
did.
Yeah.
yeah. So how did you come up with the ideas? Like when, you know, for... Like, let's take Jaws, like the second time that you did Jaws, and with Fritz's quince, you know, getting eaten. So if you're looking at a film, like, say, Gremlins or Beetlejuice or whatever, did you watch the film and then go, okay, this scene strikes me, or...
I had seen most of the movies prior to them becoming part of the series. For a couple of them, like The Warriors and Labyrinth, that I hadn't seen, I went back and watched them and then tried to come up with an idea.
Right.
Everything else, as soon as I heard the title, I thought, okay, I think I know where I can go with this. But the 3 things that I always tried to include, every poster would either have Fritz himself, either his glasses or the owl. One of those 3 things was going to be in every poster, and as it went along, I just made it more Fritz himself.
And I should mention that the posters Matt made, in many, many cases, were much better than the posters that were the official posters for the film.
Well, some of them...
That always amazed me and delighted me.
You know, the one that I remember that was whimsical and fun, but like it was like the movie, but it was a lot of fun, was the Raiders one, where you've got, you know, he's looking at the idol, and the idol's got, you know, the glasses on, and he's got, you know, but there's Indy like holding his chin like he does in the movie, you know, and so it's captures it, but it's whimsical. It's there's a lot to it. And that's one of my favorite ones as well.
I always love hearing which posters somebody really enjoyed.
Well, my favorite one is the Lost Boys. I mean, I love amusement parks, and that poster just color-wise and everything, I think it's the best poster you did. But it's the Lost Boys is amazing. Before that, it was Blade Runner. There's something about that Blade Runner poster that I just really love.
So then you would choose. I'm sorry if I'm asking all the questions.
No, no.
Okay, so you would then have to. You'd either watch the film or just come up with something that struck you about the film that you would want to draw.
I tried.
And then those 3 elements.
Yeah. Keeping Fritz in mind, I tried to always bring a little humor to whatever the design ended up being. And it was kind of a balancing act because I didn't want to do too much to pull the viewer out of the movie itself. So something like a Nite Owl t-shirt in the closet for Halloween was like a perfect meld for me, because Jamie Lee's trying to hide and Michael's coming through the closet door. Oh, there's a t-shirt.
Yeah,
Why
sure.
not? That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Right. Okay.
Well, I was among the many things that impressed me was how accurate your representation of the other actors who might be in the film, like your Jack Nicholson for The Shining, is. I mean, Nicholson would go out of his mind if he saw that. It was
Yeah.
so,
Well, his Nicholson for Batman
It's great.
and his
Yeah,
Nicholson
Jr.
for
God.
yeah.
Batman. You know what? Batman's probably my favorite poster, because you're looking at a legit comic, and I mean the panels, and it's hanging up. This is not to insult you. It's hanging up in the restroom at the London State Theatre, because if you go in their restrooms, it's all Nite Owl posters, Matt's art, and the Batman one was like, just above the urinal, of course. And one day I go in and I'm just staring at the thing, and I'm just like, holy shit. I mean, just looking at the Nicholson and how lifelike his eyes are. I mean, that's such a great poster.
Well, I was
also probably pretty buzzed at the moment.
I was about to say that he asked about what are your favorite posters.
Yeah.
The Batman was one of my favorites. Now this is terrible because of my bad memory. What was the cult movie where they sang "Do the Time Warp"?
Oh, Rocky Horror.
Rocky
Yeah.
Horror.
I know that's one of your favorites.
That is one of my all-time favorite.
Well, you know what's funny about Rocky Horror is he had contacted me before, and he's like, "What do you think Fritz will think of this?" Because it's like you interlocked with Frankenfurter. So you kidding me? He'll get a kick out of it. I mean, that's the whole thing.
I got beyond a kick.
Yeah,
I think when you ask what are your favorite posters, Rocky Horror Picture would. If I had to pick just one, I would probably pick Rocky Horror.
yeah, that's a great poster.
Yeah, Batman was.
And it's probably just
Well,
because he
second-
gave you abs. Let's be honest. He gave you abs.
Well, like I
poster,
say,
you
like
look
I say, all of his posters, I look much better on his posters than I do in real life.
So then how long does it take you to actually, once you start drawing, so what's the process like? Do you sketch and then do you plan it all out? Do you just kind of go freehand? And
I usually used elements in Photoshop to move things around and just get a feel.
Okay.
To block it all out, and then I'd start drawing from there. Sometimes a poster could take me a couple weeks to do, and sometimes I think the fastest one I ever did was for Alien.
Okay.
And it's such a
probably
great,
3 days.
oh, okay.
but it's such a great. It's like where the trackers, the
Yes.
owl, the glasses, yeah, and the alien itself looks great on that poster.
How do you go from the picture on the screen that you've got to the hard copy poster? Like from the screen, what size is your actual artwork before they blow it up to poster size?
Well, I was very careful not to lose any definition in the image, so I would work usually at 18 by 24, 300.
Which is exactly
DPI.
what the posters are.
Yeah, so,
So you're seeing 100%.
right.
Because I thought if anything, we shrink them. Because I know the size you give me is very large, which is great. And if anything, it's shrunk. But, just like with HD video, it looks great. The more you shrink it, it looks even better because you're taking all that information and,
Well, what size is the original hard copy art?
it's the same size
It's
as our
same
poster.
size.
Same size as
actual
the
print
poster.
size, yeah.
Yeah, but on my screen when I'm working, I can move it around and zoom in, zoom out.
And how big is the screen
Oh,
that you're working on?
I think it was 22 inches.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is an area of art that I know nothing about, and
Digital.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some of my granddaughters are very, very familiar with it, and I've got one great grandson that is really terrific at it, and he's about fourth grade. But it's an area that I sort of lost, not interest, abilities with pen, pencil, India ink,
Yeah.
an artist pen. The old way where you'd do it in pencil and then blue pencil and then you'd ink it in and so forth like that. Yeah.
Yeah, how frustrating. You do digital art, right? Like, do you actually like do you do it right into the computer, or do you do a drawing and then scan it in to add digital elements? Like,
It depends. Some of the
Okay.
early ones that I did were graphite drawings.
because Blade Runner feels very, you can see the
Blade
strokes.
Runner,
Yeah.
Halloween, and the first Trick or Treat were all graphite
Yes.
drawings.
We've
They
seen-
always remind me, there were books I would read as kids, like picture books, but it would remind, like, very specifically that style. I remember seeing like all the Halloween books and things that I liked, like the Spooky Tales were always like, you could see the strokes. And I know that Blade Runner poster, what's so neat about it is it looks like solid black, and then the owl is being held up, like the origami owl. And then I didn't catch it right away, but I realized on the digital file, there's light coming in behind, like hitting the black wall almost. So you do have this like greenish, almost like shade. It's not solid black behind it. And I was like, oh man. So there's so many details I noticed like later, because sometimes it prints a little bit darker. The printer we use is very true, most of the time true to color, but I've noticed it's only true to color for the lighter colors.
Right.
And if it's dark, it really absorbs that. Like the Krampus posters, it's very dark.
That was something I tried to keep in mind later in the run, but I didn't always
Yeah, no, it's
get it quite right.
They're cool, yeah.
Well, then which one was like maybe your most difficult poster? Do you have one?
I don't remember one at the moment.
Like, is there
I mean,
like
Roger
one,
Rabbit has a ton of.
yeah, is there like one image that was like, man, that was hard to draw? Like, it might have not have been in your wheelhouse.
The Jurassic Park one was kind of tedious because I had to draw so many scales, but that wasn't a problem. I didn't mind that. The one that really took a while was Labyrinth.
Oh yeah, just walking through the.
Yeah, the Labyrinth itself was. That was probably one of the most challenging, but also satisfying for me when I finally finished it.
That's
Gotcha.
the one where the owl symbol is like hidden in the labyrinth.
Right.
I mean, the trees like forming.
I think that might be the only one that we did both a release of the color version and also just the ink version.
Yeah, the black and white. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's,
When you
before Godzilla -1 did it.
right.
I'm just kidding.
When you were speaking earlier about the poster in your bedroom, it reminded me that I once had a fan at one of the shows tell me she had a poster of my Killer Clowns from Outer Space work in her bathroom so that anybody that came over and used the bathroom would have to look at it.
Nice.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great poster too, man. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to come up with. I wish I'd have prepared more for tonight, but I was. I should have like a top 5 of your posters that I like and go around the room. Because it's got to be Lost Boys, Killer Clowns, Blade Runner, Ninja Turtles is pretty sweet.
Which one? Yeah.
and
'cause
it's got the purple background, just like the old.
I'm
Dave
trying to remember
Jackson.
which one was that one because I have it, but I'm trying to remember.
All the turtles are like looking at the TV, and it's Fritz on the television, but it's him
Yes.
with the tower, right? The original tower set.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
Okay.
so cool. Everybody listening is just like, where can I see these?
Right. Yeah.
Like, just be patient. They'll be out this year.
Well,
All of them, once again.
I would say probably my personal favorite is the Beetlejuice poster that I did.
Oh, yeah.
because
That's the other one. Yes. This
It's
one.
like right there. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's right there, a miniature of it.
Yeah.
that was my favorite. Well, Beetlejuice is one of my all-time favorite films.
This
but
one says
also-
happy birthday. This is the birthday card version. Is that did you
Yes.
make that? Yeah. You had sent that, I think, to Fritz or something.
That's also my favorite depiction of you that I did.
What was the? How do you get the co-stars like Michael Keaton and so forth? all of them that you do are so incredibly lifelike. Do you just draw them from what you think of them in your mind, or do you have a photograph reference that you use?
Oh, I almost always had photographic reference. Many times for a scene, like with this Beetlejuice one, I tried the old trick that you would do from the show of imposing your face, superimposing it over the face of a character. So, I'm seeing a Godzilla toy, and that absolutely distracts my attention every time.
Yes, Fritz has an original Godzilla toy that he used on the original show.
I think I purchased that before. I think I was just doing radio when I got that.
What do you? That is a 8-inch Godzilla toy.
Yeah,
I remember it being a prop on the original Nite Owl show.
it's an Imperial Godzilla figure, and I had two versions of this very figure from the 1980s, this size and another that was about 12 inches.
Okay.
And I was Godzilla starved as a child when it came to toys and figures. I had the big Shogun, and outside of that, there wasn't a lot going on. And
is that like Shogun Warriors? Yeah, right.
Well, in terms of Godzilla figures, how good is that one?
it captures the spirit of the character. He's absolutely recognizable. You know who it is.
Right.
And when I didn't have access to any of the amazing figures that were available in Japan, and I saw this, I just grabbed it immediately.
So where did your love for Godzilla come from? Was it from?
Well, that has an origin story too.
All right, so before we get into that, your poster for Godzilla King of the Monsters for Nite Owl is pretty great. When we came to that episode, was that a hard task to like now draw Godzilla for Fritz?
Well, I was very, I won't say overwhelmed, but I was so excited to do a Godzilla episode.
You co-directed that episode too.
I did.
You did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was on set for that.
I did the Jurassic Park poster thinking that was the closest I would ever get to doing a Godzilla for Nite Owl Theatre. So this was just a bolt out of the blue for me. The hardest thing for me, given Godzilla's scale, was trying to figure out how to work both the character of Godzilla and Fritz into the same thing. And eventually I came up with the idea of the billowing smoke creating the Nite Owl logo.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that poster is great. So Fritz, back in the day on the show, and this will segue into this
story.
You would get
real quickly before we get into that. Were any of the prehistoric set comic books favorites of yours, or did you read those, see those?
I honestly, most of the comic books that I had either came from the drugstore or subscription. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get into a lot of comic book shops or places that I saw the prehistoric ones. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, comic books and black and white artwork, not like the artwork in Vampirella, Creepy and Eerie, had some of the greatest fantasy artists in the world, and they were done in black and white, which I love. And were those available to you? Again, those were things that I saw as I got older.
As you got older,
and I loved them. I love the artwork from them.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of those stashed out in the garage.
Yeah, we saw those when we.
But there were a lot of the black. There were a lot of the black and white horror magazines available back then, and many of them included like the prehistoric monster type thing. There was one that an artist by the last name was Schulz, Mark Schulz, I think. I forgot what it was, but it was set in prehistoric times. And Schulz, or the artist, whatever, I forget his name, you could tell that he had a real Frazetta influence, which is one of the reasons that I bought the book. I think his name was Mark Schulz.
I'm going to research him.
When we were going through his comics, we found Amazing Fantasy number 15. And
Really?
the cover was like ripped in half and the pages were brown. And it's still.
I got it for 3 cents.
Yeah. and he sold it for like $4,000.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. I held it, and I don't know what year that was. It was like 2013 maybe or so. I don't know why I didn't pull out your phone and take a picture of this damn
I
thing.
think that was before Nite Owl. I think I was working in radio because
Right, we didn't even
at-
do Nite Owl yet.
I was at BNS Radio, and across from what was the Buyers Chrysler DeSoto dealership, I think it was a block south of the street that's a block south of Lazarus, and it was on the east side. And about maybe a half a block up was the auto dealership Buyers, and across the street from that was a used bookstore. And you'd go in there, and he had a large table, and the comic books, they weren't stacked neatly. They were just one big pile on the table, and I'd go through them and pull them out. And the reason I got it was I liked the Ditko art.
Yeah.
I didn't care that much. I care one way or another about Spider-Man, but
Yeah.
the Steve Ditko art was something that I'd never seen him. And again, he had really a unique style. Mm-hmm. And speaking of comic, real quickly, a very, very popular comic strip and book and newspaper strip in the 40s was called Alley Oop. Did you ever read? Oh, okay.
I have heard of Alley Oop.
Oh, you've heard of him.
I believe that I saw some of. Did he run in the newspapers?
Oh yeah, he was a huge newspaper. He was one of the favorite newspaper strips. He rivaled Dick Tracy and Little Abner and Tarzan.
I don't know how late those strips ran, but I swear I feel like I remember seeing some again in my earliest memories from probably 78, 79.
Okay. Well, again, going back to the dinosaur thing, he was a time machine. Somehow the modern day scientists were able to go back to his age, and then they were also able to bring him up into the present. But he had a pet dinosaur that he rode, and there were other dinosaurs and prehistoric animals in the strip that he would show.
Did
But
they
they were
explain
done
the
more
origin of how
they
he
were done more cartoony
came
style
to write
than
it?
realistic.
That would have been my dream as a kid, though.
Yeah, riding a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. Dude, I saw Jurassic World and I was like, "This is so stupid." He's riding a raptor. Like that thing would murder him. And it's just one of those things where I always find that funny. Where it's like, how did you get that dinosaur and then not get it to kill you, and that's your pet?
Well, obviously, it would know that I loved it very much.
If it were
Get
Godzilla.
along.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the scariest things I ever did, speaking of riding a dinosaur, was I rode an elephant.
Oh,
I've ridden an elephant. Yeah.
I've done that,
From
yeah.
the old train station downtown all the way to Nationwide Boulevard.
Oh, okay, I didn't do that.
And I was on the lead elephant, and when that elephant started, no seat. I mean, we're just sitting on the
Yeah, yeah.
elephant's head.
Ooh.
And when that elephant, and they only had one guy leading the elephants, and he would run back and forth along the 5 or 6 or 7 elephants that there were, and there were a lot of times he's at the tail end of the thing, and the elephant I'm on takes off at a run. And as I say,
Did you guys see Fritz the Nite Owl? He's
talk
ride
about
the elephant downtown.
Talk about scary. A guy did a watercolor of me on the elephant that's right behind you, Mike.
Was it just like you in fear and the elephant running?
It's right straight behind you. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Anyway,
right now.
I never rode a dinosaur, but the elephant was a scary thing. as I say, when they asked us to do it, I'd always seen, like, you see Marilyn Monroe or Rock Hudson or Gene Kelly riding on an elephant, but they're always in some kind of seat. And so I thought that's what we're going to have, but no such
I
luck.
rode one at the zoo when I was a kid, and there was no seat. I mean, he just got on its back and went.
Yeah, if you were tall enough, you could hold on to one ear.
Yeah, that's
But
what I remember doing.
other than that, you had to balance with both hands on his head.
Yep.
I can just imagine some kid going home and saying, I saw Fritz riding an elephant.
I saw an
sure you
elephant
did.
run off with Fritz. Is he all right?
Well, somebody took a photograph of it and then made a watercolor of it. So both of them are on in the artwork that's behind you on the table there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're asking Fritz about.
Yeah, so the two most requested characters
Oh, my
on
boss.
Nite Owl.
My boss asked me to go through my reader's mail and tell him who were the most popular actors and actresses and type of movies so that he could buy those types of movies. And it turned out the two most famous, and they outdid everybody else, were Elvis and Godzilla. They beat out John Wayne, Dean Martin, Cary Grant, Betty Davis, Elvis and Godzilla.
And to our fans listening out there who love Godzilla and loved watching Godzilla on Fritz's show, I got to ask Matt, who's definitely one of you, a Godzilla connoisseur. Tell us tell us your story on that, about why.
Well, first, I want to say that I am apparently more of a man of the people than I realized, because Elvis is my favorite singer as well.
Nice.
So that's a 1-2 punch for me.
Did you see the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie, which I will champion forever? But did you see it?
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, okay, great.
I loved it.
Good answer. All right, we're good now. Back to Godzilla.
Back to Godzilla. Now, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh! You said you had an origin story for how you got into Godzilla or why you got into Godzilla.
Around the age of 3.5, we moved from North Carolina to Illinois, and we spent a night in a hotel. And the morning that it came time to leave, I saw a commercial for a film that was going to be playing on a television station there in whatever town we were in. And it ended up being the original Mothra versus Godzilla. Now, I was too young to catch the title. All I knew was that I saw a dinosaur destroying a castle, and I wanted to stay. And I had a fit because we couldn't stay. And for years, that stuck with me. And in my mind, it felt like a lifetime as a child, because that's how time works then. But really, it was couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years before I found the movie that scene came from. But I think seeing Godzilla briefly in film version and not the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, but not being able to sit down and actually watch him in that moment is what flipped the switch for me. And it became a wrong, an injustice that needed to be righted.
Okay.
I just went from there and gobbled up any Godzilla content I could find.
Nice.
So-
Yeah, I think as a kid when I had watched them when they were on either Nite Owl or USA's Up All Night or whatever it's on. But one thing as a kid I always found, I tried to get into Godzilla, and the problem was I thought there were a lot of slow moments in those movies, and I didn't care at all about character exposition. I just wanted to get back to Godzilla destroying stuff. And then as I got older, when I started to go back and kind of revisit some of them, I realized like that some of the best parts about them are the characters, which apparently in Godzilla -1 is what that's all about. Is it's sort of like the for everything I've heard is you care about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, one of the film packages that John Hawley bought was a package that featured all of the Godzilla type characters. It had all of the Godzilla films to that date, plus some of the other characters like Mothra and some of the other prehistoric atomic caused. But it was a whole package of, I think there was about 20 or 25 films
Wow.
in the package that, and it was called the Godzilla package. And what happened was, all of the films you did, if you wanted to buy just one film to show on TV, very, very expensive. But they would come out, they'd have like say a Burt Reynolds package, and have like 8 of Burt Reynolds' best movies, and then there'd be about 40 other movies in there that if you wanted those 8 Burt Reynolds, you had to take the whole package of 48 or 32, and they would tell you how many times a year you could run them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's why you guys stuck showing like the man with 2 heads.
No, but that was why.
Right.
No, but I mean, I'm saying that's why we had all of the Godzilla and prehistoric monster movies on Nite Owl Theatre, was because there was a film package that was nothing but those types of movies.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question. So when it comes to like the Godzilla movies, was Godzilla in every one of those movies, or did Mothra have its own movie, or
Mothra debuted in her own film.
in her own film? Okay.
This is a whole thing, because I'm an OCD collector, or like if I was to watch the Godzilla movies.
Wait, what's OCD?
Oh, like obsessive compulsive when it comes
okay.
to like I want to see everything. It's why I gave up on Marvel, because there's like so many series, there's so many movies. It's like at this point I'd have to live and breathe Marvel every day to see everything, and I'm just not going to do it. So I either go all in or none. Godzilla confuses the hell out of me, because I'm like, are there 32 or around that movies? But then I look and there's also like the other monsters that Godzilla ends up coming in contact with have their own, and I'm like, wait a minute. So are they are they canon? What the hell?
Yeah. So like, you know,
I can't figure this out.
So growing up
so
in-
I just haven't watched them.
yeah, so growing up in Cleveland on WUAB, on Saturdays we had Superhost. And Superhost would show everything from like Sinbad to, in the Seven Seas, but they had a lot of Godzilla movies. And I would watch it, but I'm like, oh, this is technically the world of Godzilla, but they're, but I don't see Godzilla, but I would also be flipping channels, and then it would be the redheaded, the one with the red, like almost the Hydra. Isn't there one that's like a dragon almost, with many heads?
Yes.
Ghidorah?
Ghidorah. But then there's the mechanical one, right?
Mechagodzilla.
But yes, right. Okay, thank you. But so was Godzilla in all? So Godzilla was not in all of those films, but it was the same world.
There were a small handful that he was not in.
Okay.
Do they count? Do they all count as part of?
If they cross paths with him in a later film, I think.
But even if they don't, the fact that they're alive in their own film, and do they technically, is it the same canon universe then?
It could be.
See, this is why I don't watch.
So did Fritz the Nite Owl? Did you guys show films like when you said we showed the Godzilla films? Did all of them have Godzilla in them, or were some of the okay?
Like
no, I'll take that back. We had all of the Godzilla films to date, but then some of the other monsters that appeared with Godzilla in the films that had their own film, we had those. And then we had some that were prehistoric monster type things that weren't in the Godzilla thing at all. It's just that particular package was nothing but prehistoric monsters. Real quickly, what is the connection between the very, very newest Godzilla and Columbus, Ohio?
You mean Godzilla -1?
Well, the one that...
Oh, no. Okay, so there's Godzilla...
Columbus artists did it.
Well, there's Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was the sequel to Godzilla from 2015? 2014. And that was Michael Dougherty, our friend Michael Dougherty, who grew up watching You, who wrote and directed Trick or Treat, Krampus, and then his third movie he directed was Godzilla King of the Monsters with Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things.
Right. No, I just knew that.
It's a beautiful looking movie.
I just knew that there was a connection between Columbus artist and
that's Michael
Godzilla.
Dougherty. Yeah. Who you can see 2 of his films on Nite Owl Theatre this year: Trick or Treat around Halloween and Krampus around Christmas.
I love both of those so much.
They're so good. They're so good.
Yeah. Well, I have the Krampus comic book, and I had never heard of that myth or that character until we showed it on Nite Owl. And yet apparently Krampus is
it's an old German legend.
Very, very, much more well known than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I saw Michael about a year ago, maybe, and he had said, he just enjoyed the Trick or Treat episode we did so much, and he said, if it wasn't for Fritz, that's literally who got me into horror. So it's
Well, I'm surprised.
We're
I'm
everywhere.
surprised I had never heard of him before, because the little town I came from in central Wisconsin had a large, very, very large German population. And it wasn't a big town, so everybody knew everything. So I'm just surprised that when we would talk about the Christmas legends, Santa Claus and the angels and the stable and all of that stuff, all of these German friends of mine, kids, the word Krampus was just never mentioned. I'm surprised
they
that.
were probably raised just one legend, one.
Well, but I mean, the thing is, when I was a kid, 3, 4. I heard the legend of Santa Claus and the birth of Christ and all of that stuff was just part of what a kid heard growing up. And I'm just surprised that with all of the German kids whose parents came over, lived in that town, I'm just surprised they had never heard of Krampus until we showed it on Nite Owl.
Yeah. No, it's a cool,
Never too late to learn.
Right. Especially that way.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie.
Well, I've got the comic book somewhere, and that was I thought very well done. Nice adaptation of the. Did Godzilla ever have a comic book?
Yes.
Oh God, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I never saw one of those.
Marvel had a Godzilla series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they're just finished, I believe, a 7-issue run of Godzilla and Kong both versus the Justice League.
So Batman's up against Godzilla and Kong.
Godzilla defeats Superman in it, I believe. I haven't looked at them yet, but I'm going to grab the trade paperback when it comes out.
Precious, need to be left alone. That's all right.
Well,
I will tell you,
that was a confrontation I played out in my brain all the time as a kid.
Well, yeah. So
every time I'm in Cincinnati, I drive by the Justice League building and I freak out because you can just, if you're not pulling right up to it, you can only see it from the freeway for like a second. Mm-hmm. It's just like right beside you, and I'm like, oh my God, it's still amazing to know that. Because you could look at it and go, that looks like the Justice League building. And then when you look it up, they literally, that's the building they modeled it like it. That's pretty cool. I just imagine that the Super Friends are always in there just hanging out.
So were you a Kong fan too?
Oh, the very first monster movie I ever saw was the 76 Kong.
76, okay.
And
Jeff Bridges, right?
Yeah, Jessica Lange, yeah.
I watched that recently and was blown away by how good Jeff was in it. Because as a kid, he made no impression on me. It was all Kong.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I watched it again, I was like, wow. But
he made an impression on me in 1982 in Tron.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, up in Cleveland, they would show King Kong every Thanksgiving night, and so when our family, I don't know, it was a weird tradition up in Cleveland, but
we all watch Kong.
What we would do is our family had a very big family. We'd be at my grandmother's house, and at some point, all the kids would pile into my grandmother's room because she had a TV there, as all the adults were downstairs, and we would always watch King Kong, and so it always became, So I became a huge King Kong fan. And then when I heard that there was a King Kong versus Godzilla movie that they made, what is it, maybe in the 70s or something like
62.
that? 62. Mm-hmm. But then I saw pictures of it, and it was not, it didn't look very good.
It's a pretty sad story about how that film came to be. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to fudge any of the details, but...
Well, you can kind of just...
speculate. That's what we do.
Yeah, speculate, yeah.
Willis O'Brien wanted to do a sequel to King Kong for years, and he came up with an idea that was going to be Frankenstein versus King Kong, where a descendant of Dr. Frankenstein created a creature, I think they called it the ginkgo or something like that, that was... African animals that were sewn together into one massive beast. And then he and Kong would eventually get loose in San Francisco and battle on the Golden Gate Bridge before falling in to the water. But that never worked out. And then somehow, through shady shenanigans, the agent who was representing O'Brien took the idea to Toho, and they completely dropped the Frankenstein aspect of it, brought in Godzilla, and O'Brien didn't know about the film going into production until it was already completed or something like that.
Oh God.
Yikes.
So that I would think broke his heart.
Yeah.
But
Oh well.
my dad in the 80s had an old satellite receiver, and we got, I think it was WWOR or something like that out of New York, and they would show on Thanksgiving a triple feature of King Kong, Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young.
Yeah, maybe that was the same thing. Yeah. It was
And
just,
then the following
I watched
day it would
Rocky
be,
on Thanksgiving. That's what I watched.
Right.
then there would be a Godzilla triple feature on what eventually became Black Friday. But
oh wow.
Now, I do remember the Godzilla marathons that used to be on TV all the time on certain. It was around Christmas. It was always winter time, and I thought.
Well, recently, one of the cable stations, I don't know if it was Turner Classic or something, but they ran the original King Kong followed by Mighty Joe Young. And as much as I enjoyed Godzilla, I was a very big, huge yawn over Mighty Joe Young.
Yeah, I mean,
I loved Terry Moore, which was
you should
go
see
watch her.
Son of Kong.
What year was the original King Kong made?
33, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw it the first time on the big screen in a small town at night, and we had my two brothers and I had maybe a mile to walk from our house to the movie theater. No, not a mile, maybe half a mile to the movie theater, but some of the streets and so forth were dark and very scary. And after seeing King Kong on that huge movie screen, it was kind of a scary walk home. And I think one of the reasons why my kids were not as afraid of the monster movies, etc., when they saw them on television, was that they were bigger than the monster on the screen.
Sure.
Whereas in my day, we were all tiny compared to Frankenstein and Dracula and Godzilla and King Kong and so forth.
Yeah.
Well,
fascinating.
you know, at Studio 35, they do the Cinema Classics, and was it last year or 2 years ago? I was talking to them with Tim Baldwin, who was putting it together, and every year I would always pitch for a classic, do King Kong. Do the original 1933 version of King Kong. And so finally they did it a couple years ago. And so I went down there with my wife to go see it. And a lot of people brought their families. And it was packed. You know, a lot of people came. And I didn't remember how violent, you know, that movie was. You know, because they're like, oh, we're going to watch this like funny movie. You know, not funny movie, but, you know, this monster movie that was made a long time ago, whatever. But then when he like grabs T-Rex's jaws and like... you know, opens, you know, breaks its jaws, you know, and you're watching it. And then you kind of saw like, okay, kids, let's go, you know. And so people like little families are leaving. And I'm like, yeah, this is more violent. I guess maybe on the big screen. You know, when you're watching on the small screen, it's like, okay, you know, whatever. But when you're seeing on the big screen and you're sitting next to a little kid and they're just kind of horrified by it, you're like, yeah, maybe this is...
Your father and I will be home in a bit, kids. Watch Starship Troopers.
Right.
It's almost funny what memory stays with you. And years ago, I saw a screening of King Kong. I believe it was at the Sci-Fi Marathon here in Columbus. And the woman seated next to me was cheering for the biplanes.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, I don't understand that woman's existence.
So I never cared much for, you know, I wasn't a big monster kid. But when King Kong, the Peter Jackson one, came out, I had known Jack Black from touring with Tenacious D and just in passing and stuff. And we were all very happy for him because he got, that was his like big, I mean, he was already an actor, but like that, to get cast in a Peter Jackson film was like, oh my God, he's going to be a star, you know. And so we all went and saw that. And I fell in love with how sad that movie is. Like when I was watching the Peter Jackson version, they really did a great job of getting you on Kong's side, and a lot of it was that Central Park scene where he's skating, and like I'm just like I'm losing it. You know, I think Andy Man might have been there, and we were watching it. We're all just kind of tearing up, and
You didn't get that from the 1933 version?
I don't know if I remember it a whole lot. Is there a scene like that in the 33?
I don't know. I remember bawling every single time, like as a kid watching it.
Okay, so you still find sympathy because I mean the humans are so the bad guys in that. and it's just like
Well, you just kind of feel that, you know, when he is chained up and they're all taking the photographers come out and he's confused, he's out of his element, and then you're like, that poor animal, you know, and then he breaks out and he's like killing everybody. You're not like, oh, what a horrible creature. It's just more of I don't know, I feel a lot of sympathy, and he's reacting, and then he climbs to escape, you know, everything, and then they kill him.
Listen, if I ever show
But they
up,
dragged him out of his home, and, you know.
if I ever show up and I'm like, guys, I got a new pet tiger. I expect you to take the tiger's side if he mauls my ass to death, because you don't mess with nature.
Well, yeah, but why would you take the tiger out of its element and then?
I'm stupid. Why did they take King Kong out of his element?
For greed, you know,
Right.
So
if I was like, I could take this tiger and teach it tricks and make a lot of money, you'd be like, okay,
I would not.
all right.
No.
That was why I was always a fan of the 2 Japanese Kong films from the 60s, because they didn't kill him. He survived both films.
Oh.
And
How did that work with rights? Because wasn't that an RKO movie, like, originally, or Universal? Or I mean, that was one of Universal's monster movies, right? So
It was a RKO originally.
Oh, okay.
And they worked out a licensing deal to use him in a couple of films. I'm not sure if it was for 2 movies or a certain span of time.
Okay.
But they got 2 films out of it. And the Godzilla film, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, started out as a King Kong film.
Okay.
And they decided late in the process to swap. And that's why if you watch the film, Godzilla acts very Kong-like in a few scenes.
Does it beat its chest and?
Well, he notices a human woman, and he squats down to look at her. And the opponent, Ibara, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, he was a rare foe for Godzilla that didn't have a power. He was just a giant crustacean. And that seems so much better suited for Kong than Godzilla.
yeah.
And the thing that always got me was that Mothra has a cameo in that film. And we were this close to having a film with Kong and Mothra both in it. And that just blows my mind whenever I stop and think about it.
So besides Godzilla, do you have a favorite monster? Do you have a?
Oh, I love so many different ones for different reasons, but Godzilla and Kong, Frankenstein's monster, the Karloff version, the original Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I saw all of those before I was in 7th grade, and all of them were on the huge screen, and there was always that long, dark walk.
My mom used to tell a similar story about the original Thing with James Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one that scared her, and she always expected him to be lurking in the shadows on her walk home, or when she opened a door for him to be standing right there like he does in the film.
Oh, I was working at the Clinton Theater as an usher when we showed the original, I call it the James Arness thing, and we showed it on like a Friday and a Saturday night, and it was Friday night was normally when the pre-teen kids either Friday night or Saturday afternoon would come to the movie. And as an usher's job, I mean, it was mostly stop fist fights and throwing the candy, etc. But when we showed that James Arness Kong, for every showing we had, that theater was absolutely bloody silent.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Or people ducking under their seats.
So when I was 7 years old, when did American Werewolf in London come out? Was it
81.
81?
81.
So I was 7 or 8 years old, and my oldest brothers were like, I have 2 older brothers, and they're like, hey, we're going to go to the movie theater. Do you want to come with us? It's like this, fun movie. So they took me to see American Werewolf in London, and I did not like horror at all. I was also 7, 8 years old, and I remember sitting in the theater.
Tell the Jaws 2 story after this.
Oh yeah, and so then we, in one of the opening scenes, his friend gets torn apart by the werewolf, and I remember I just said to my brothers, like, I have to go to the bathroom, I'll be right back. And so I went to the bathroom and I hid in the stall. And I remember my brother came back and he was trying to find me in a panic, and he's like, where are you? And I'm like, I am terrified. So Jaws 2.
It's like, didn't we go through this 4 years ago?
Yeah, so that came out in 78. I was 4 or 5 years old. They took me to see Jaws 2. And I remember one of the first scenes, I just started crying. And I cried through the entire movie. I remember I sat on my brother's lap facing away from the screen. And I remember the guy behind us, because I was ruining the movie for basically everybody in the theater. I remember the guy like leaned forward and said, "Shut up." And then anytime there's anything sort of bloody on the screen, I forgot what movie it was, but is it Sorcerer or something? The Sorcerer, where
Sword and the Sorcerer?
he tears out his heart in the beginning or something like that.
Probably Temple of Doom.
And no, it wasn't Temple of Doom. But I remember my brother like looked at me. He's like, "Okay, you know, we're gonna have to leave because I can't take it."
Yeah.
And then finally we went to go see Terminator. And no, Conan.
Terminator, he does pull out.
Yeah. Conan was another one.
Yeah.
Where, because the mom gets her head cut off right in the beginning, and then he's fighting in the pit, and then we left that one. And then Terminator, when he tears out his heart, my brother, I think, just grabbed his jacket. He's like, "Okay." And I was like, no, we're going to watch this movie, you know, because I'm going to be a big boy now. And I remember I watched it, and, you know, but I remember we must have left 4 or 5 movies because I just couldn't handle violence or anything bloody or anything like that.
My mom.
Terminator's so good.
No, it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're going to say, I'm sorry. Your mom?
My mom took me to see the remake of The Blob.
Oh.
What year did that come out?
88, and it's so good.
I was probably 12 at the time, and she kept turning to me and saying, "Is this too much? Should we leave? Do you want to leave?" No.
Yeah.
No.
I was the opposite.
That is
I was like,
so.
yes.
That's a Chuck Russell movie, and he directed it a year after Dream Warriors.
Oh,
So I mean, you got a 1-2 punch there, like just some of the best '80s horror. I mean, that remake of The Blob is so.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3? Is that?
Well,
Yeah, I like that
Dream
one.
Warriors.
Yeah.
But with The Blob, we did that remake as the Nite Owl episode, of course. You know, that poster's fantastic. It was just Fritz.
Well, when we showed Blob on Nite Owl, the special effect I had, and I created this myself, I made about 4 boxes of red Jell-O and put it on a flat pie pan, and I'm talking on the tower, and I'm talking about how this is impossible, never happen, and at the same time the camera is moving in on the red Jell-O, which is climbing up the tower, and they had the special effect of where they were able to bring it down from the top. So the Jell-O is coming up
that's
both
great.
ways, and I'm talking about how, you know, it's fantasy, forget it, don't be scared. And as a matter of fact, I was eating a bowl of Jell-O when I was talking about it.
That's fantastic.
Did you do a similar effect for the green slime?
Yes. Except I used green Jell-O.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that at the time, I believe, from childhood.
But it's amazing. You put it on a flat, like, pie pan and just jiggle it. I mean, that stuff, you got about three or 4 boxes of plain Jell-O that you've made and just dumped out on there, so it's not the nice flat thing. It really shakes and shimmers perfectly for green slime or a Godzilla movie. Well, as a matter of fact, green slime, I'm sitting in the control room of the spaceship that Eric Hartzell created.
Yes. Yeah.
And on Godzilla, I'm sitting on the tower.
Yep.
But the thing is, the effect is the same. The green slime is coming into the control room and down the top, and red for. See, I like the Steve McQueen version.
Oh, it's great. I
Original.
got the Criterion Blu-ray of that.
So Matt, would your dream job to be like doing something for a studio, like drawing monster, you know, either like concept art or doing, you know, just something? Would that be your dream job? Or do you appreciate the fact that it's a hobby that you're not?
Something like one of my favorite artists is Basil Gogos, who did the covers for many of the famous monsters of Filmland.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And something where I could just spend my time doing classic monsters would bring me
Immense
joy, because I look at these characters and feel as much love for many of them as I did as a child, and for a few of them even more than I did back then, because I appreciate them better now.
We'll have to get to work on that Fritz comic with the classic monsters in it and everything. plug. It's an idea. No. Well, thank you, Matt, so much for coming on. And
thank you for the fantastic art posters you did for Nite Owl Theatre. A lot of times the posters were better than the movie.
It was truly my pleasure. And again, I can't thank of a better job I could have had at any point in my life to bring the whole thing full circle. Than for working with you.
We got a mutual admiration society.
And of course, we have 3 episodes that we have shot with Fritz that we never did the effects on yet, because Disney got the rights, and we may never be able to show them. But we probably will. It's just we can't show them in a theater, so we might do like a park screening or something at some point. But they're the 3 lost episodes of Nite Owl, and that, of course, is the Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, the Star Wars trilogy. Yeah.
And I know that Matt has under his belt 3 almost finished posters for that, which I have not. I have no idea what to do with them. I have no. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So one day you will all get to see.
What kind of copyright problems would you run into?
Well, it's fan art.
Trying to show to sell the Godzilla or the Star Wars posters.
Nothing, because
nothing. No, it'd be just like our other posters. We were just waiting because we wanted to finish the episodes and then bring them out with the episode. That's why, because we have the Crow and Tron and E.T. were the other 3 that we didn't shoot. And he did the Crow already, and that's amazing, that poster. And we've never put it online yet or anything, but the Crow poster is incredible. So I was talking with Ryan Blazo, our effects artist, and we were talking about how to complete 3 new episodes, if we put a studio in the house or something like that. And then Ryan's like, well, we have enough footage of Fritz. If you just get Fritz to read it, you're like from the couch, like deliver the lines, we can literally reuse footage from behind you and in the shadows and make it just look like you're there. And I was like, hey, well, hell. Yeah. I said, let's do a whole new season. I'll just give Fritz cards to read in the couch. No, but yeah, so you never know. This is the 50th anniversary. We are done with the show. We're showing everything. But you never know. We might, in the years coming, just be able to finish stuff we've started, and, we'll see. But thank you for supporting us. Thank you for coming to the shows. We'll see you all tomorrow night at RoboCop, and we'll have a fun year together celebrating the 50th. Keep tuning in to Conversations with the Owl. Friday nights that we don't have shows, there will be a new episode. And sometimes we like to take Friday nights off when Joe Bob is doing his thing, because he's a friend of ours, and we all are the same monster kids that like to watch drive-in movies too. So anyway, tune in next time for Conversations with the Owl. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the movies.